and I had to drive that trailer home, and those rusted out holes on the bottom of the grill were feeding some of the still alive embers. And in the darkness behind me, I saw trails of little sparks flying off.
Welcome to another episode of Chewing the Fat. I am your host, Big Rob. Thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you for the support, the outreach. I really appreciate it as we go on this journey together. And I'm excited to connect with an old friend from radio days. He is an author, a country music aficionado, and a really good friend too. Please welcome Bill West from Charleston.
Big Rob, good to see you. And hear you. You're actually, yeah.
You can see me. You can see me.
You've got a gift for radio. So I was excited. Your voice. Heard the podcast from a couple of weeks ago with our mutual friend Dale, and both of you guys have got the voices. It's like, man, I wish I had that the pipes, but.
Oh, come on, man! You got the pipes, you got the personality. You're the complete package, man. I had such a good time working with you back in the old Bull days here in Augusta.
I still run across one of those great pictures that we have from Sugarland. That just either you shared it or I shared it. But man, we got some good concert shots. Those are some good days, and super proud of those days in Augusta.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun times. It was fun coming in as kind of the underdog against the country station across the street there. Yep. And then funny in later years, having worked there myself.
Yeah. Have you worked at the new 105.7?
No. Okay. I worked at Kicks for a little while. So that's when I was across the street there after having.
And you get to look back with, and I've been in a bunch of real competitive radio situations in my life. That's pretty competitive, and I've gotten to, I would say, be pretty good friends with T. Gentry and the crew over there, and Chris O'Kelly came to work over in my neck of the woods, and great guys. So
yeah, it was a lot of fun. We did some crazy stuff. What was it? There was a concert at the ballpark.
Yeah.
One of the Green Jackets
the ice cream truck. Yeah. I don't know that they still have forgiven me on that one, but radio, for people listening, radio gets pretty intense. And we had a fun little ice cream truck. We'd go drive around and give out free Mayfield ice cream, is the big brand in Augusta and South Carolina. And so we marked our spot right in front of the ballpark earlier in the day where there's public parking, and pulled right in with the other station's ballpark event and gave away free ice cream to their listeners, all logoed out. So, yeah, that's definitely a highlight of the radio warfare.
That was a lot of fun, But it was funny is as competitive as we were, if one of the guys at the other station was like, "Hey, our mic cable went out. Okay, here we've got an extra one."
Oh, yeah.
It's like it was all in. Yes, we wanted to win the ratings, but we were all in the same kind of fight,
Yeah, radio is, I also look back very fondly, and you'll appreciate that, working in that building. And the other radio station that was in the building that we worked at was WBBQ, which is, I knew well of it before I went to work there, and have heard lots more since. And another guy, you should get Bob Raleigh. I don't know if you know Bob. A friend of mine and a mentor of mine who just did his own book called Better Than Digging Ditches. That's a great title. All of his years in radio, and in particular some of the years in that building as well.
Yeah.
Is the building still there?
Yeah. The building's still there on Georgia Avenue. Nobody's in it. The station has since moved out. It's been for sale for a little while. But the building is still there. And it's funny, since you're gone now, we were right next to Channel 12, the TV station. Well, the TV station has since moved as well. It's across town. So you've got these two, what were huge media, television, radio, stations right there next to each other. And they're just kind of empty buildings now. It's a little sad to drive past.
It is a different world. And it's been really, the last year has been extra weird with everybody doing shows from home and trying to run a lot of the camaraderie that we were just kind of talking about is being challenged right now, but we're all in the process of hopefully getting back into normal studios and rekindling it all. So hopefully it'll all come back.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's, like I said, when you get the radio bug and it bites you, you kind of, there's that energy that you get from being in the studio, from meeting listeners face to face, from going and interacting with the people, like I said, that are in the trenches with you, in the same fight, whether they're at your station or they're at another station. There's just something magic about that.
Yeah, for sure. Are you, is this your first podcast? Have you done this before, or are you?
No, this is the first one.
You were well, cause you used to work, and did you produce the guys out in Alabama?
I did.
A big show down there?
Yeah, I did. I worked in Alabama for a while, Patty and Dollar Bill show, morning show on a radio station there. And there's some of my greatest stories are from working in radio. So I tried to take some of that knowledge, bring it into the podcast. I think that's, as I said in the trailer, the episode 0, that's what kind of got in my way. Was I was used to being somebody else's product. I was somebody else's voice on their station, instead of like, hey, all of this is on me now. So I felt all this extra pressure and putting it on myself to make it exactly right, or this, that, and the other. I mean, I had a logo created like a year ago. I had theme music a year ago, and I had a hard time hitting the record button and just doing it. So I mean, it's been fun.
Yeah, I don't know if it's totally imposter syndrome, but the hesitancy to. There's a book called The War of Art. Pressfield, I think, is the guy that wrote it, but he's got a term for it. It doesn't come to my mind exactly right now, but basically the hesitancy to the resistance to get started, put the pen on paper, to hit record and do it is something that's very real, whether it's called a writer's block or sometimes it just feels like laziness or whatever.
Right.
It's very real that, I still fight with. I kind of got, the nice thing was with when COVID hit, it kind of pushed me. I'd done a string of 4 cookbooks, one on my own. Then I did 3 for a publisher. And then I thought I was faced with, COVID, and I knew we were going to have some furloughs for a few weeks, a couple, at least 3 weeks. And I thought, okay, I've still got a lot of ideas for a new barbecue book that I've just been making notes over the years, and I'm going to do it at some point. But it was one of those things I was putting off. And then COVID came. It's like, okay, there's no real excuse to not do it with the furlough time. So It was great. And I just come off doing a bunch of them. So I was really on a roll. So got it done this year and wrapped it all up and got it published by the holiday. Actually got it wrapped up and written by the end of last summer, and then got it out before Christmas. And I was really pleased. Now going back and revisiting, things are kind of getting back to normal, getting back to everyday radio work. And I'm going back. I'm like, wow, this was time well spent. I'm looking at it right now. It's like there's a lot here. So I'm still excited to share it, because I've probably under promoted it, just getting back into the real world after this crazy year.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think everybody is. It's like a friend of mine that was on a previous episode said she's working, and said nobody's going to work to get back to normal. That normal is gone. So it's working to get back to better. And I love that phrase, that thought process. It's like, I'm going to get back to better than it was before. It's not going to be normal ever again. So let's get to better than than it was before. So having that time, like you said, to concentrate on something you're passionate about. And, and it's a funny thing, but we worked together for years, and I never knew you had that passion for cooking and for barbecue. And I'm a big boy and I like eating, and you never quite shared that. I mean,
I would say that's when it started, right towards the end of our bull. I think the first whole hog I cooked, it may have been before, but I think the first one was, we did a pig picking with Aaron Tippin, who's classic country singer at at whatever it was, one of the fairground kind of places. And I bought, actually, I know where I bought my first really big rig grill and first smoker was at our church. They do a big yard sale on Martinez Evans at the Methodist Church there. And we I saw we got in early access, and there was an electric smoker, kettle, Brinkman, and in general they're really cheap, but this was like marked for $10 or whatever.
Oh, wow.
It was in great condition. So I snagged that, and I think they had a barbecue team at this church. And they had this big trailered barrel steel grill. Wasn't really a smoker. It's a charcoal, and it was rusted out at the bottom, but they were getting rid of it. So I think I paid $100 for that. And I'm sure it was probably worth more than that, just the steel alone.
Right.
And it took the first one I cooked. And actually I remember after the Aaron Tippin event, did the whole hog, and it was great. And, everybody loved it. It was a fun event. And I had to drive that trailer home afterwards, and it was charcoal. So there was still, it looked like it was all out, but it wasn't until I was on the expressway and those rusted out holes on the bottom of the grill were feeding some of the still alive embers. And in the darkness behind me, I saw trails of little sparks flying off hopefully didn't cause any problems, but flying off, which I'm sure could have caused all sorts of problems or fires or something. But that was somewhat terrifying. And I'll remember, never move a hot grill again.
At least not one with rusted out holes in the bottom. Right?
Yeah. I didn't realize how bad it was. And I since even fixed that up, and it's great. But that big barrel kind of got me into some of the competition stuff, which I really got more into when I moved a couple months later and got to Charleston and got to know a lot of people in the South Carolina barbecue world.
I mean, you're talking about Charleston. I mean, and you got Rodney Scott down there. I mean, that is such a great story in and of itself. This little shack, middle of nowhere, South Carolina. Now, granted, he's got a nice place down in Charleston now, but just a little shack.
I was going to say, did you see the video I did with him?
No, I haven't seen that.
I've got to really go to just the YouTube video, Barbecue Tricks. And I went, and this was probably at least a year before he opened up the Charleston restaurant. He alluded to it was at least more than a year. But I decided, you know what, I'm going to go down, take a drive to Hemingway. And, I'd kind of read about it, and I did, and went once with the coworker, and then returned brought my wife out there and a camera, and did an interview with Rodney. And really, he gave me a great tour, and you can see it. And there's all sorts of crazy comments on the YouTube video because Rodney's talking to me, and then he pulls out this big 5-gallon mop bucket, and full size mop, and starts sopping the hog, and it's dripping on the side and everything. It just looks, but people are cracking up because people just New York people or people in the big city, they don't they see like that dude's using a mop, and there's all crazy comments. And he also uses a lot of, it looks like salt. I have a feeling it's not salt. It may have been different stuff, but when you cook a whole hog, you got to use a lot of salt too. So he a lot of comments on how much salt he's using for that for the hog. But it's a great video. I'm real proud of it. And since then, he's gone on to do some huge things. And I interviewed him in my first book as well, the Barbecue Blueprint, where he shares some of his secrets. Not a lot, but some.
Well, I mean, and that's you talk about people making fun of a mop. Well, that mop helped him become a James Beard Award winner.
Absolutely.
From a nowhere shack, Hemingway, South Carolina, cooking whole hogs with a mop and lots of salt. That's something that nobody else can say, to tell you the truth. Nobody else can say.
One other thing I'll say about Rodney, who's become a friend, every time, whether it be at the Hemingway store when he was in the old store, which I don't think he has any part of anymore, the 2 times I went there, I'm not even so sure I had an appointment when I went and interviewed him. I probably set it up. It's been so long now. But even going to his new store, his new restaurant here in Charleston, every time I've seen him working in some form or fashion, whether he's, acting as a manager or whatever, but he's been busy. Now he's got a couple different stores. I know he's got one in Birmingham, I think, and Atlanta now. So I'm sure he made it through COVID, but it was rough getting through that. But yeah, he's definitely a star on the stage, and he's got a great Netflix special out too with where they interview him for one of those shows. So
Great.
Definitely one of the best. Yeah. And I don't know that Charleston, when I first moved here, was barbecue central, but it sure feels like it is now.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about this when I was planning on talking to you. One of my favorite, although I've been gone for so long now, one of my favorite barbecue towns now is becoming Augusta, because my favorite place is Sconiers of all time.
Really?
That's my favorite barbecue place. And I assume he's still doing it right. Because they do they use whole hams, I believe, in the, Larry Sconier. I assume he's still around. I don't know, but he's another guy that's always, every time I'd go, and it's been 5-6 years, I think, since we'd stepped foot. He's always greeting people, smiling. And at one point he gave us a tour of the smoking area, and it's huge. And his technique is pretty cool. I'll never forget. He cooks the whole ham. A green ham is what they call it, but the whole ham. So there's all that, a lot of pink meat, so to speak. And he may mix it with some shoulder, but it's just really good. And then he'll let that, he said he likes the hams drip onto the turkey and some of the other things that just really set him apart. So yeah, that's usually what I say is my favorite barbecue place is Sconiers.
And it's funny when you talk about, Charleston. I don't think of Charleston as barbecue. I think of it as seafood. First of all, I think of it as, you got Hyman's down there and all the other places down there. But when I moved to Birmingham, before I came back to Augusta and we worked together, Birmingham to me was barbecue mecca. Because, you literally could throw a rock and hit another barbecue restaurant, anywhere in the town. Amazing places like Full Moon Barbecue. That's where I got introduced to sliced barbecue. There's a lot of places do chopped and this, that, and the other, and they do that. And you can get chopped and pulled in Birmingham, but they will do sliced, and they do either outside or inside sliced. Well, I'm a bark guy, so I get outside sliced every time. So you just got a mouthful of that bark and that meat that's right there, and it's my absolute favorite. Nobody here in Augusta does sliced. I can't.
Yeah, you don't. That's pretty rare. So it's like sliced butt.
Yeah.
Or shoulder or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They take it, and instead of just pulling it all like that, they'll slice it, little 1/2 inch, thick slices, and you get a plate of that. It's still, whatever the 1/2 pound or whatever, but you eat outside, and there are people that like inside slice, so they don't get much of that bark, but yeah. And then, like I said, there's just a ton of different places. Dreamland with the ribs. I had like a route where I would go to get the different barbecue that I want, So if I wanted meat,
where is Big Bob Gibson? Is that in Alabama? The white barbecue sauce?
Now they do. Yes, they do have an Alabama white barbecue sauce at a lot of the places. A lot of places have an Alabama white barbecue sauce, which is a mayo based and vinegar
I like that
sauce. And it's different. It's just different than anywhere else. But yeah, man, I love me some barbecue. Gosh. And like I said, for you to be a pit master, and have not sent me anything, dry packed and in the mail or anything, my feelings are getting a little bit hurt. But so
you got to do it in person.
Okay, road trip,
sure.
Travel's open back up. I'm gonna have to come see you. But what was that road like becoming a pit master? Like I said, your first one was a yard sale grill, and now.
I don't, I'm tracing back my steps, and I do it of the different radio markets I used to work. And I was in Savannah before that. And I do remember I actually had a gas grill that I worked on, just learning how to smoke ribs slowly. And I remember, it takes 4 hours, and then I got to Augusta and bought those 2 smokers I mentioned earlier, and really learned the smoking part and how simple really it is to make really good barbecue, and you don't need a ton of expensive gear, but you can do it with a regular gas grill and take your time. But the secret that I learned was from that electric smoker, and it was
Hmm.
ended up kind of being the subject of by actually the book that I've had that's doing the best is the Complete Electric Smoker Cookbook. But
Hmm.
you just got to hold that temperature low and slow, 225, 250. That electric smoker that I had really just had low, medium, and high settings or low smoke, medium smoke, and high smoke
Hmm.
temperatures. And it just took time.
Yeah.
And so I used the heck out of that. And then when I got to Charleston, somehow I think through radio got into a couple of amateur type competitions that were
Hmm.
just about part of the KCBS series. So I got my feet wet meeting some barbecue people, and I got connected with a guy who is all in on a real expert, Jack Waybor, who I ended up doing a YouTube series with for a couple of years called Great TV, and I still have the website GRATETV.com,
Hmm.
and pretty much learned everything from him and got into some competition. I wasn't nearly as deep into it. What I learned, and I dig into this in my first book, is I'm not a real competitive guy.
Hmm.
I just like cooking. I like eating, and so having a team and going through all the work, which can be expensive and very time consuming if you got a busy life and a busy work life,
Hmm.
can be challenging because most of those competitions they cost some money, and it can get expensive for the gear and to invest in the meat. And you also have usually you got to give up your Friday, and it's camping overnight Friday night to Saturday, and typically the awards are Saturday afternoon,
Hmm.
and you're heading out of town and getting back. So I ended up getting into judging a little bit
Okay.
through the South Carolina Barbecue Network, and found like, holy cow, my wife MJ likes this too, likes this idea as well. So we did a bunch of competitions, and that's a lot less demanding because you get to show up early on Saturday morning, come hungry, and you get to have a bunch of great barbecue,
Yeah.
and still have the good camaraderie. So
Yeah.
if anybody out there listening is interested in something like that, I got a full list in the first book, barbecue blueprint, of all the different barbecue sanctioned groups, and there's a ton of them
Hmm.
all across the country that people can look into just getting involved. It's not usually not very expensive, but there's a lot of groups. I'm not sure it may have been a lot busier a couple of years ago or a lot more popular, but it's still popular. I'm sure COVID took put a pause on a lot of stuff last year, but
Hmm.
there's still a lot of barbecue out there kicking back into gear. It'll probably be an extra busy year. But I looked before COVID. I was shocked to see, at least in South Carolina, there is a competition, probably two, any given weekend of the year across the state of South Carolina. So there's plenty of competition. That's just South Carolina,
Yeah.
not to count, I'm sure, Texas and all the other big
Kansas
barbecue
City
states
and
with stuff
Memphis
going on.
and
Yeah, yeah.
everywhere else, all those big names that you hear about. And we've got one here at Augusta too. We've got Banjo BQ. I think when
Yeah.
you were here, it was just starting. They didn't
Yep.
have any type of affiliation or anything like that. Now they're the
KCBS.
KCBS sanctioned. But yeah, so we've got Banjo BQ, and of course that's a great festival weekend.
Where is that? Where is it held?
Well, originally they held it at like the Hippodrome here, but it's moved around a couple of times. There is
I think the Hippodrome was where we did that Aaron Tippin thing.
Mhm.
I think.
I believe the last time it was up at there is a park in Columbia County. It's the Lady A Park, Lady A Bellum Park,
Okay.
named after those folks that were from Augusta.
Yeah, yeah.
Drop some country music names there.
Yeah.
Charles Kelly and those guys. But they've got an amphitheater up there, and there's a big park there. So I believe that's where it was last time. I can't remember from last year again because things got stopped for COVID and all like that. So, but I have seen some Facebook posts and stuff like that about Banjo BQ coming back.
Yeah, I think that was like the first year, because I do remember that being it being at the Hippodrome, and I actually met. I have a picture somewhere with Myron Mixon, who's a big barbecue, one of the big stars of barbecue. He's got a bunch of books out. So, yeah, another reason Augusta is one of is a big barbecue city. I know they've got RecTech now, which is a really big brand of pellet cooker. And they stole your Bull logo that we had for 105.7 The Bull. It almost looks identical to the one that you came up with back in the day.
It does. It does.
They look like they have a really good product too. So I think that's cool. I watch theirs. They got a lot of YouTube stuff out all the time.
Yeah, they're constantly putting content out, and also they're offering like their RecTech weekends and their classes and their camps and all that other stuff. So it's not just about, well, I got this grill, what do I do with it? I mean, they'll show you what to do with it. I think the last thing I saw, they either just had a camp or they've got another one coming up, and they probably do it several times throughout the summer, I would think, especially because, I mean, I would think this is prime, grilling, barbecuing, getting outdoors and cooking kind of time of the year going into the summer,
sure.
Especially, people want to be around the pool, or they want to get together and they want to, do that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, big. They were. I remember when they started in a little bitty, looked like a little Quonset hut office, and now they have this huge facility that they have just macked out.
The pellet cooker. So first book was Barbecue Blueprint. I did on my own. Second one was the electric smoker, and kind of inspired by. They asked me about doing an electric smoker book. I'm like, yeah, that makes perfect sense, because I could say very honestly that some people think, if it's not, you're not throwing sticks into a fire pot or whole logs, it's not real barbecue. But I learned a lot just using that little electric smoker, getting me into it. Mm-hmm. So I had a lot of fun writing that book, and that, like I said, that's at so about at least 60,000 copies already. Wow. So the electric smoker book is my book that's doing really well. And then I followed that up, because I was also getting into pellet cooking at that point. Mm-hmm. Don't tell the RecTech guys, but I had a Traeger, and I had done some YouTube videos on the Traeger, and really, really, I think like that's the sweet spot of like the best of all worlds, because you're using real wood. Mm-hmm. And actually, for a lot of competition, some of their rules is you have to use the heat of wood. And I'm like, that is okay per like official barbecue rules, because it's using real wood. It does use an auger to spit out the pellets into the fire pot. Right. But anyway, I really love the ease of a pellet grill. So I'm definitely easy to sing the praises of a pellet grill, and that was an easy book to write as well, just because I'm a fan of it. So yeah, that was two of the books, and then I ended up. They asked me to do another one with Rockridge Press. And I tried to boil it down real easy and do a Smoking Meat 101 and just make my version of a For Dummies type book of easy step-by-step. How do you smoke the big meats, the brisket, turkey, ribs, and try and make it as simple as possible. And so that's the one from a year or so ago, and that's doing real well too. So, and
then the latest one is the Big Book of Barbecue Tricks, right?
Yep, Big Book of Barbecue Tricks just came out right before the holidays, and it's kind of now is really the season. I wanted to get it out before Christmas, just to because I know the holiday time is a big time, but now is the real time where people are Father's Day and buying cookbooks. So it's a cookbook. It's also like a collection of. The reason I wanted to do it was it's like I had these other books, but on my blog, which is barbecuetricks.com, I'd been trying to do all these little like food hacks, tips and things like that. And, I never really focused in too much to really get them cataloged that great. So I took the opportunity to not only do a ton of, recipes, like 100 recipes, but the main ones, and also try and grab all the little tips and tricks and hacks that can help somebody out and make it a fun read. And I was, we're doing this on using the magic of Zoom, but I also was able to, during COVID, get hold of couple of big chefs, and there's a couple of YouTuber barbecue guys. Greg Rempe does a podcast called the Barbecue Central Radio Show. I interviewed him. Interviewed Greg Mervich from a YouTube website called Ballistic Barbecue, and he does all these incredible burgers, and now he does some sous vide. Wrote a book on sous vide barbecue. Wow. A guy from Meat and Bone, Louis Mata, does some really high end meats, and a guy named James Peisker, who's the founder of Porter Road Butchers in Nashville, and they kind of I got to interview him a little bit via Zoom and transcribe the best little tips and bits from him and put that in there too. So I tried to put a lot of stuff in there, and had a ton of fun kind of compiling it up and feel like, okay, this is a good general barbecue. If somebody's interested in just barbecue in general, not competition, just doing it for a backyarder, maybe he's curious of some of that stuff. It's a kind of a good book for anybody who's into it. So big book of barbecue tricks. Check it out. And I even did a little bit of artwork, not much. They're kind of sketches, but
yeah. But I
illustrations.
Grill illustrations. Yes, I love that term, grill illustrations. I had a chance to look at the book. I apologize for my dog barking in the background if you can hear that.
No worries.
She's out there playing. But yeah, it's kind of like a Swiss Army knife of barbecuing. It's a really cool book, and some cool tricks in there that I wouldn't even have thought of. And one of them that comes to mind is the s'more trick, the hot spot s'mores. I just thought that was just brilliant, just something simple but brilliant, But
you can find the hot spots in your grill as kind of a test, especially if you get a new one. The only warning I'd say, I think I've also done that with biscuit dough. With biscuit dough, actually probably works better because it's not going to, marshmallow can burn very quick, and bread burns super quick. So you got to pay attention. But it's nice because you got a little snack afterwards.
Exactly. But yeah, just really cool with the big book of barbecue tricks. Speaking of barbecue tricks, and you mentioned for the folks that are not looking for competition, if folks are looking to get into competition though, as a judge, I'm not saying give all your secrets away, but is there something that you see when it comes across the plate, sits in front of you, either you instantly know it's not going to make it, and something you see that you're like, yeah, this is going to be a good bite just by looking at it. And I'm not talking about all the fancy plating and stuff, but just you're like, okay, I can tell this is going to be a good bite.
Yeah, I would say it's a tenderness thing for the most part. So the way one of the judges taught me was if you take a strand, thinking pork really, and you can pull like a threaded pulled pork piece, and you give it like a tug between your fingers, you can tenderness will be like almost like it'll pull apart somewhat loosely like a piece of paper towel. You'll have a lot of little threads, and it'll pull apart easily. So when you're in the judging seat, or you're looking at judges, you can see them. They'll pull it apart and kind of eyeball that. So getting it to that fall apart texture is what you need. Now, when it comes to ribs, you want that as well. When I do it in the backyard, I like fall off the bone, but one of the things that competition guys strive for is they firmly believe that fall off the bone is overcooked, which, I'm telling you, no one's going to complain if you got fall off the bone ribs in your backyard. They're going to enjoy it. But the competition guys want it to have just a gentle tug. So it's more of a timing thing. But that's why I kind of just like doing it. I wasn't quite as enamored with the competition stuff, but the other thing that people really like in competition is sweetness. So a lot of the ribs and barbecue has got like a sweet sauce typically to help it win.
Okay. So maybe avoid some of you don't want to burn anybody up, I would assume. This isn't
judges like it sweet. Yeah. Don't use a lot of spiciness.
Okay.
Although I love spicy.
Same. I mean, if I'm putting, some out, that's what I want. Now, I am a naked rib kind of guy. I mean, you put a rib, you put a rub on it, you mop it or whatever. I'm not going to put a lot of sauce on it afterwards. But if I've got like some pulled pork or something, and I'm a fan of the taste of the smoke too. So, I want to taste that smoke. I want to taste that meat. But if I'm going to go for a sauce, it's going to have, maybe a little sweet heat or some heat to it.
What kind of sauce would you go with at a barbecue place?
Oh, I mean, it's going to be a Georgia style, so it's going to be a ketchup based. It's going to, but it's going to maybe something with some hickory and some heat to it too. You know what I mean? Or even black pepper. Even black pepper is a great taste on meat.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, most all of my like brisket recipes are just salt and pepper, black pepper and a lot of smoke. But when it comes to sauces, I like a South Carolina mustard based sauce. So, pretty sweet. Not for you, huh?
Let me say this. I mean, I've eaten a lot of South Carolina mustard based sauce. I like it on chicken. I'm not a fan of it on pork or anything like that, but I do like it on chicken. The mustard on the chicken tastes really good to me. But for a pork, I'm gonna want to catch up, or even some of the Alabama white on there, because it's a little bit different. It's got the black pepper. It's got a little spice to it. It's just a little bit different. But that's just my personal taste. Yeah. Although there is I have a bottle of mustard barbecue sauce in my fridge right now that was made in South Carolina, and I cannot remember the name of it.
Probably Bessinger's.
No, it's because it's out of Barnwell, right down the road here. It's out of Barnwell, and I can't remember the name of it because they had an orange and they had a mustard, a yellow, and it was named after like a town or something. And I can't remember what it was, but I'll put it in the show notes once I'll look in the fridge and I'll put it in the show notes and but it's good because it's not sweet mustardy. It's got some pepper to it. It's got a little bite of like actual mustard, but not like, French's, like you're putting French's on there, but it's good. It's really good.
So I was actually trying to remember. I'm pretty sure I've got so many different little recipes that I tried to figure out, but I did do I've got like a really good Worcestershire based. It's called Slap Yo Mama barbecue sauce, but it's kind of your Worcestershire based red kind of a sauce that's probably my favorite, but I do like a mustard sauce. I've got that in the big book of barbecue tricks. I kind of try and cover all of those different, at least the main sauces. But I kind of like them all, depending on even just a vinegar based.
I was going to say, have you made a white barbecue sauce yet?
Yep, yeah, and I like that. My wife's not a big fan of it, so we don't end up doing it too much. But I can find it a lot more here. A couple of places here in town that serve it with chicken wings.
That barbecue sauce is from the Palmetto Sauce Company out of Barnwell, and it's called the Congaree Gold.
Okay.
So if you look like the palmettosauceco.com. It's delicious. I'm not a fan of the orange that they had. It was just not. I haven't
had an orange sauce before, but
I don't know what it was.
Favorite. I like orange, so I might like it.
Well, it's called the Edisto Orange, and I think it's just because of the color of it. But the Congaree Gold was a really good. It's probably one of the first mustard-based South Carolina style barbecue sauce that I've really liked. So,
and then one of the other things that I would suggest to you and your listeners, if you want to step up something like pork or beef, but more pork, is trying some of the heritage breed pork that's out there. And usually pork's not quite on the beef side, people are really talking about Wagyu and, really expensive, and beef's already expensive enough. But I talk about that a little bit in the book, and I've done some YouTube videos on Wagyu, and it's awesome. It's fantastic, but super expensive. But heritage breed of pork, and I've gotten connected with Butcher Box, which they do. They started with beef, but they also do some good pork, and it's it's mail delivery. But they do, and I tried with their just pork chops, and I'm like, man, there's something about it that just tastes. It's really hard to describe, but just tastes more more porky,
Mm-hmm.
just more rich. And I've come to find that just the older breeds. It's not that our big box stores are necessarily. It's not like I don't see anything bad with them, but when you go to some of these older breeds that aren't done on a mass farm, and they've got some of their if there's something about it, maybe it reminds us in our farthermost reaches of our childhood when it wasn't when those breeds were still kind of more popular,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and the flavor is just there's something about it that is worth visiting. So that'd be a little trick is try some of the heritage breeds of pork for pork chops and other things.
Is there like a specific one that you could?
Yeah, Berkshire is
Berkshire.
the
Okay.
most famous one you'll see. I talk about all the there's like Duroc, I think is the one that one of the guys was talking about in my book. But you go to a farmer's market, you'll find some local farms, and
Mm-hmm.
there's some of them have different purposes. Like some are good. One of them is a really good bacon thing. It's probably hard to find like to get really specific on different breeds. You'd
Mm-hmm.
probably be really looking. So
Okay.
just next time you're at a local farmer's market, or if you see a Berkshire or a heritage breed,
Okay.
give it a try.
All right, Bill. So this is the time in the show where we'd like to dive a little bit deeper into how we make it through our life. Everybody's coming off of 2020, and it was just everybody had to deal with so much stuff that we never thought we'd probably have to deal with in our lives in the middle of a pandemic. But I try to stay positive and upbeat, but I also deal with down days. And so what I like to ask during this segment is, how do you in your life, how do you stay positive, and what do you do to keep the dark at bay?
In general, I am a strong Christian, so prayer has become a big part of my life, and morning devotional time with some scripture has been a big part. I will say, I have since being in Augusta, so just over the last 10 years, after I turned 40, I started realizing I had an issue with depression.
Yeah.
And I did, several years ago, I ended up getting to a point where I had to go see a doctor, and, never was suicidal, but definitely realized that depression and clinical depression is a very real thing. And I was happy to see you talk about it with in previous podcasts, and that you bring it up, because I think the one thing that helps is actually talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any answers on how to beat depression. I feel real lucky. I did go to see a doctor about it, and did try some different medicines, or one medicine, and it seemed to work for a while. And I'm not taking it anymore, and I've been I feel like it's out of my life. And
That's great.
but I can't say that I have answers. I'd say talking to somebody about it is probably is the first medicine. And of course, I recently talking about, a lot of people are talking about you putting God into the equation. And I definitely think that's part of it for me, but I know a lot of people would think it's nothing's bigger than that. But that doesn't mean medicine's not a part of it either for people. I think that there's definitely a part of it that, God would put medicine in your life to help you fight it. So,
Yeah.
So definitely find a doctor. Someone told me when I was fighting it, that was going through it, find somebody that is also going through it or had gone through it.
Yeah.
And they recommended, find something that you find fun.
Yeah.
And whether it's going to a movie, finding a funny movie. So I try and do that, and just try and keep things fun. But again, I wish I had a better prescription for people, because I don't. I'm thankful that I feel like I've beaten it, but am wary that that it could lurk back. So talk to people.
But that's the thing, is like you're saying, is like, you found something, in your belief, in your faith. You found someone to talk to, you reached out. I think, for folks to realize that they are not alone, because that is one of the robbers of joy of depression, is that you feel you are the only one going through it. You're the only one that feels like this. You're the only one that gets down on yourself. And that's another reason why I really wanted this podcast to be a platform to show that everybody has those down days. Everybody has something that they deal with that is not, rainbows and butterflies. And it's how do you then get back and not stay stuck in that mire, in that mud, knowing that there are people in the world that you can reach out to, whether it's a circle of friends, whether it's family, and whether it's professional help. There is nothing wrong with professional help. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not a failure as a human because you had to go to a doctor, because the way that you felt, because of the things that you were thinking, because of the, actions you scared yourself that you may or may not take. There's nothing wrong with that. Those feelings are valid, but you have to act on them properly. You have to reach out. You have to say, hey, I'm not doing well. Hey, I could use someone to talk to. If you just listen to me, that's all I need. And there are, phone numbers and helplines that are out there that you can call. But again, something like this, just talking to an old friend, talking to a coworker, a confidant, just finding someone that you can just open up to and be real honest in your feelings, be real honest with yourself, and get that out. Because I think that keeping it in, that stuffing it down, it weighs people down even further, because that's going to make you feel more separated and more alone and more overwhelmed. Really.
Yeah, I would say I was not afraid, but I didn't want to burden my wife. I felt guilt about talking too much about it, because, I didn't want them to feel like they're the blame. But, and it's also weird because I never really had that experience of depression up until, like I said, after I was at least 40 years old. So, I'd say talk to people.
All right, Bill. This is our Fast Five segment. Fast Five. I don't have a theme song, so I'm still working on it. So I just gotta make it
I'm ready.
I can't. I don't know if I got a beatbox in me or not. So, but this is the Fast Five powered by Pod Deck. So, seeing as you are a cookbook author, I've gone to the foodie deck exclusively. So I'll be asking you 5 questions from the foodie pod deck created by Travis Brown. If you ever need like conversation starters or anything like that, or if you're a podcaster and you need show ideas, check out Pod Decks. It's a great tool. But I'm going to go ahead and hit the randomizer here, and we'll get going with our Fast Five.
Standing by.
Do you have a family recipe that you've learned to make?
Ooh, that's trying to think. There's certainly a lot of recipes on my wife's side. She has, I would say she is the one that helped come up with the recipe that I have for these, we call them smoked onion bombs, but really it's, you take an onion, like a Vidalia sweet onion, you zip the core out, drop a bouillon cube in there, either beef or chicken, cover, cap that off with butter and put Parmesan on top of that to seal it. And then you just cook the heck out of it. And it is delicious. So yeah, that would be from my wife's side, but a family recipe.
That's awesome. It's funny. My mom used to make something very similar. Didn't have the Parmesan on it, and we put it in the oven. But yeah, core out a Vidalia onion, put a bouillon in there, and Just let it
Yeah, I'm
go.
sure my wife's side had ended up it was probably an oven recipe, but it's transformed to barbecue
I
for
can
us now.
imagine that it's so much better in a smoker, though. I mean, because
Absolutely.
that's a whole other layer of flavor that you're putting on there. That's awesome. All right, question number 2: cake or pie, and what kind?
Cake, and I like a good carrot cake.
Ooh,
Cream cheese icing.
that's one of my favorites too. That is one of my favorites. All right, question number 3: ooh, what would you want your last meal to be?
Oh boy, let's say a bone-in ribeye with crinkle cut fries,
Mmm, little
and
steak frite.
but I like my coleslaw, so I'll have a really good coleslaw on the side as well.
That sounds pretty awesome. Now, are you
But
a
I don't want to go yet.
right? Right? No, 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 no. Are you a mayo-y coleslaw, vinegar coleslaw, mustard
I pretty much
coleslaw?
can like all of any and all, but you're really something really sweet,
Mm-hmm.
like a sweet mayonnaise based is pretty good.
That's right. Okay.
Even KFC does a pretty darn good job with slaw.
I was gonna say I love KFC slaw on like a hot dog. Like if I'm gonna do like a chili cheese
Oh
dog,
yeah,
chili slaw dog, I go get KFC
yeah. I
coleslaw for
hadn't
that.
talked about hot dogs, so yeah, that's another one of my weaknesses.
Oh, really? Okay, okay. All right, let's try one more here. This is number 4. Which city do you think has the best food?
I'm originally born and raised in the suburbs of Chicago, so I'm gonna, it's gonna have to be at Chicago, whether
Nice.
it's an Italian beef, which is really good. My first job ever was working in a little. It was a Greek deli, but wasn't like super Greek. It was just kind of a general deli, and they did a real good Chicago style hot dog. They did a good Italian beef and a really good po' boy. So
Mm,
Chicago's got it going on. They have some good ribs too in general down up there.
okay. What you deep dish pizza guy then? You get the
Definitely.
Chicago. I mean,
Gino's East would be my go-to for deep dish pizza.
Gino's. Yeah, I'm gonna write that down. So if I ever get to Chicago, Gino's East.
Oh man, there's a lot of choices for deep dish, but Gino's is
That's the
yeah.
spot you're going to, right? That's
That's
so
right.
you got a 1-day trip, and you only got like 6 hours. You're gonna stop by Gino's.
Gino's East.
That's awesome. All right, and our 5th one here. What is the most exotic meat you've ever cooked? And did you eat
I
any
won't.
of
I
it?
won't say. I won't. Well, we did frog legs, which is I don't. I don't. Some people probably don't even think it's that exotic. And I had my brother-in-law. We grilled some for a YouTube video that we got on at Barbetrix YouTube. But and that's okay. Kind of chicken of the marsh,
Yeah.
the swamp. But one exotic one, I ended up having llama. There was an event called Bovinova I went to a couple years ago, and that's probably my most popular YouTube video I did on it. It's got over 1 million views. But these guys would go out, and it was up near Greenville, South Carolina, and they would over a live fire cook the whole cow,
Oh,
and they'd do a butterflied cow. And
wow.
actually, in the video, I think the reason why the video did so well is it ended up catching on fire, so they were hosing it down, trying to put it out. So it's pretty funny, worth viewing. But they also did a thing called a barnyard burn, where they do chickens and everything in the barnyard. But they also did a llama, and I tried llama, and it was actually pretty decent taste. I was figuring it would taste gamey or something. It was fairly mild and was decent. So llama or frog, if I'm going off the top of my head.
Gotcha. I've had frog legs before, never had any llama before. Don't know that I'm going to, put that on the click list to get,
Yeah, right.
on a weekend or anything like that. But, and like you said, frog legs they don't taste like chicken. I don't care what anybody says. They don't taste like chicken. They don't feel like chicken in your mouth. It's frog legs, but but it wasn't bad. So.
Yeah, it's not that doesn't even seem that foreign. Gator's not that uncommon down out here. There's places that'll do gator bites and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
okay. Well, Bill, thank you so much for being on the show today. That's it. That's the show. Remind folks where they can find you. It's barbecuetricks.com. Is that right?
BBQTRICKS, or spell it out BARBECUE tricks.com. But log on and I got everything right there, and you can kind of branch off from it.
Excellent. And we can find your books on there, I'm sure. So if you're looking for something for a late Father's Day or just something for yourself, check out the big book Barbecue Tricks, along with barbecue blueprints. And if you're looking to get a Rectech or something like that, they got the wood pillet cookbook, an electric smoker cookbook. I mean, so
you can find some of those in Target as well as in Barnes & Noble. So check it out and look for it under Bill West, and Amazon too.
Bill West. And we'll put the links up there in the show notes. And also you can find out more about Bill on the website at chewingthefatbr.com. We'll have all the links on there for you as well. Bill, it's so great to connect with you again.
Definitely.
We'll have to have you on. Maybe we'll do a holiday edition when we get to see if we can do some winter grilling or some winter barbecuing or something like that. But I'd love to have you back on again and stay in touch. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thanks, Big Rob. We'll be listening.
Awesome. And if you would like to support the podcast, you can also buy me a coffee at the website, chewingthefatbr.com. Thanks to Jason Craig for the logo design, Jacob Johnson for all of the theme music, and of course, Poddex for the great questions in the Fast Five. And we'll see you next time, and we'll chew the fat.